you all for coming today. I appreciate it once again. And we're very lucky here to have Denise Mercury from Minuteman Senior Services. Our registered nutritionist dietitian is here today. She's going to be talking about some of the updated information on nutrition labels.
Yep.
So thanks again for coming, really appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
All right, so as I said before, we're talking about the nutrition facts labels today, the importance of them, the changes that have been made recently, and then how you can use them to make healthier choices and compare food items. So, talking about the changes, the first major change made to the food labels is the serving size. As you can see, serving size is right there where that red box is, and it is larger, bolder. The number of servings is easier to locate because it's larger and bolder, and they have changed some of the serving sizes to be more realistic serving sizes. So, you know, if you have that pint of ice cream that says 4 servings, and you know most people eat it all in one sitting, so they've changed the serving sizes to be more of what people actually consume of an item instead of this imaginary like best portion size. Oh, jeez. I'm sorry. That should have been off. And the serving size is not the recommendation of how much to eat. That's important to know. It's not saying like that we recommend that amount. It is just more of the amount that people normally eat of that product. So example, ice cream serving size on nutrition facts labels used to be a half of a cup. We find that people usually eat more than that, so they've changed it to 2/3 of a cup. And that as well, you know, 16-ounce bottles of soda, it used to be 2 servings, but who just drinks half of, you know, a bottle of soda? So they've changed that to be 1 bottle. If it's in kind of a single serve package, the serving size is usually the whole package. So you'll see some changes in the serving sizes. Serving size is also the first thing you want to look at on a food label, because all the information below the serving size tells you, or the serving size tells you about that information. So 2/3 of a cup of this item is 230 calories. If you were going to eat more than 2/3 of a cup, you'd need to do some math to find out how many calories are in that serving size. So you always want to look at the serving size first, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we talk about the labels. The second change is the calories. It's all they changed with calories is made it larger and bolder so you can see it quicker and easier. Calorie needs. I usually get this question about calorie needs. How many calories am I supposed to have in a day? So I put together the dietary guidelines, their recommendation of calories for males and females from 66 to 76 and above. It's broken down by age, sex, and then activity level. So sedentary, moderately active, and active. So your calorie needs depend on those factors, as well as other things going on in your life. So these are just guidelines, but you know, a female who is 67 years old and is very sedentary would need about 1,600 calories. But if they were very active, they'd need closer to 2,000 calories. So it all depends on age, sex, and activity level. Just to give you an idea, because the labels are based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So when they made the labels and the daily values, they had to do it kind of based on something. So the general recommendation is 2,000 calories, but it's important to know that everybody's actual calorie needs are different. The next change is in the fats section. So they removed calories from fat, basically because research has shown that the type of fat is more important than the quantity. So you may all remember years back where fat was all bad. You know, everything had to be low fat, no fat. We didn't want to eat any fat in our diets. Well, research has proven that we do need some fat in our diet. We now recommend looking for unsaturated fats. Things like olive oils that are, other oils that are liquid at room temperature. Saturated fat is usually solid at room temperature and ones that we like to avoid. And here on the nutrition facts label, they have saturated fat and trans fat and total fat. So those are the ones that you want to avoid, saturated and trans. The newest section on the nutrition facts label is added sugars. So again, research has really shown that we need to watch the sugar that we intake, especially these added sugars. And what I mean about added sugars is they are added during the processing of the item. There's also natural sugars, which are sugars that naturally occur in the item. So say fruit. Fruit always has naturally occurring sugars. But the added sugars, if you have canned fruit, you have the naturally occurring sugar in the fruit, but canned fruit, they usually add some kind of syrup or juice that it's sitting in. That would be added sugar. So you'll see this in added sugars are things like table sugar, syrup, honey, concentrated juices that are added to a product to sweeten it up. They really have no nutritional value. They just add calories. So it's really difficult to meet your daily nutrient needs, staying within the right calorie level if you eat a lot of sugar. So we want to avoid the added sugars.
Now, does added sugar include those, stevia or whatever those sweetened?
So yeah, the what you're talking about is the non-nutritive sweeteners like the equals, the stevia, all of those. Those are not included here. That's a great question because those don't add any calories or nutritional value. You would find those just in the ingredients statement, but they don't contribute to sugar, so they won't show up here because it would be still zero sugar content. So the added sugars, it is shown as both grams and percent daily value. The daily value used for added sugars is 50 grams, and that's about 12 teaspoons of sugar. So we're saying you should stay below 12 teaspoons of added sugar per day. And just to kind of put that into context, I think that's like a 16-ounce bottle of Coca-Cola. Again, the serving size you can see is one bottle, because people are going to drink one bottle. And the added sugars is 55 grams, or 110% of your daily value. So just kind of shows you drinking one bottle of soda is, more sugar than you really need for the day. So it's nice that they put that information on there so we now as consumers are empowered to know whether we want that or not. Next section that made changes is the nutrients section down here at the bottom. The vitamin D and potassium are now required in addition to iron and calcium. So previously it had vitamin A and C, iron and calcium, but research has shown that really our population isn't lacking in vitamin C or vitamin A anymore. So, it's not really needed to be on there, but we do lack vitamin D and potassium. I mean, how many of us living in the Northeast are taking a vitamin D supplement, or their doctors have talked to them about vitamin D because we don't get enough from being out in the sun? Now it's nice that it is on the nutrition facts label so we can know how much is in food. Potassium as well, it's nice to know what's in there, especially some people who have kidney problems and need to limit potassium. They're really cheering about this because now they know how much potassium is in a food, which was very difficult to figure out before. And the other change is that they put actual amounts of these nutrients. Previously, it was just percent daily value, which can be helpful, but also if you're trying to stick to a certain amount, if you're limiting, say, potassium, now you know the actual amount. Or if you're trying to get more calcium and you know you need a certain amount in your diet, now you can look and know how much is in there. Food companies must list these 4 nutrients, but they are allowed to list others as well. I see this on like cereal boxes, especially those cereals that say they have, 10,000 vitamins and minerals in them, or whatever it is, you'll look at the nutrition facts label and it's about this long because they have a lot more nutrients that they're highlighting, which is fine according to the requirements. They just need to make sure that they put those 4 on there. Any questions about that? No? And the last update is this footnote that nobody ever really reads. But they tried to make it more understandable. So it says the percent daily value tells you how much of a nutrient in a serving of food contributes to a daily diet. So 2,000 calories a day is used for general nutrition advice. Kind of confusing, but basically it's saying that we're using 2,000 calorie diet as the baseline. So you might need more or less, but it's kind of gives you an idea of where it stands. And those percent daily values are based on that. So it helps you to understand the nutrition information in the context of a total diet. So you can use it to compare food products. So I put up here a little kind of rule of thumb. So 5% of the daily value or less per serving is considered low. So things that we usually want less of, so you want to look for things that are 5% or lower. Saturated fat, sodium, added sugars, trans fats. If you're looking at the daily value of those items, you want them to be around 5% or less. 20% or more daily values is considered high. So things like fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, potassium, those are usually things we want more of. So you want to look for the higher percentage of daily value. It's just kind of an easy way to look at the labels and know whether something is high, whether a food item is high or low in a certain nutrient. Does that make sense? I know the daily value can be kind of confusing, but that's how I feel like it can be useful looking at it quickly to know if it's high or low, especially something like sodium or added sugars. You look at it and say, oh, 5%, that's lower. If it's 80%, well, that's a lot, because that would be for your whole day is 100%. So just kind of an overview again, the serving size is larger with bolder type. Then the servings were updated to be more of what people actually consume. The calories are larger. The total fat, they removed a percentage of calories from fat. They updated daily values. They added the added sugars section. And they changed some of the nutrients, added the actual amounts, and then they changed the footnote. Before we go on, I have a little game. We can look at some labels, try and determine what they are, what to look for on them. But does anyone have questions at all about the labels before we move on to that? No? All right.
Well, I just had a question about
Okay.
carbohydrate and sugar. Now, what's the difference between?
So carbohydrates include not just sugars, but also fiber.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah, you want a lot of fiber, but you want less sugar in most situations. Because sugar is a carbohydrate. So what I handed out is just some labels. And we can look at them together and think about what do we think this label might be? Is it nutritious? Some of them have 2 labels. We can compare which one you would choose based on the nutrition information. So we're trying to kind of put the label information I just talked about into context when you're looking at it in a supermarket. Is it nutritious? What might it be? So looking at the first one, I have it up here on the screen as well. Take a look, and anybody let me know what you think it might be.
Well, it says it's chips.
Potato chips.
So good. The first thing we're supposed to look at is what? The
Chips,
serving
yes,
size. And the serving size says About 7 chips. So you know that it's chips of some sort, right? But look at the rest of the information. Do you think it's healthy? Do you think you should maybe have it as a snack or not? What kind of things are you looking at on there?
But again, who would eat 7 chips?
Good point. She said, but who is going to eat 7 chips? So that's a real takeaway from this. So if you look at, say, sodium, you know, we're always talking about sodium. 115 milligrams, it's 5% of the daily value. We say what? That's low. For a chip, that's not bad. But then if you put it into context of 7 chips, are you really going to eat 7 chips? There's 18 servings per container, so you know, you got a bag. You gonna eat half the bag? If you eat half the bag, you have to multiply the sodium by 9. So then you end up with, you know, 900 milligrams of sodium. It's no longer good. So that's why we're always looking at serving size first, because it puts everything else into context.
What size bag is this?
So, it's Tostitos. I guess it's the party size bag. So,
32 ounces.
no, I don't know exactly the weight on it. It doesn't show in my picture. And 28, yeah. So yeah, it's most likely you're not going to eat 7 chips. If you are, then it would be a fine snack. But if you're going to eat half the bag, then it's probably not. Depending on, you know, your medical issues and what you're concerned about yourself, might not be a good choice or it might be a good choice. All right, on the second one, it's comparing 2 items. So there's 2 food labels, they're similar items. What do we think they are? Which one would you choose? And why? A, that was quick. Why would you choose A?
Well, you look at the added sugars, there's none in A, and there's 16 grams in B.
Right, so looking at these labels, they're very, calories, B is a little bit higher, right? It's 180 instead of 110. Total fat, 2.5 grams, 3 grams, pretty similar. Well, sodium, B is higher in sodium. But the big difference here is the added sugars. So A has 0 added sugars, and B has 16 grams of added sugars. So 32% of the daily value in 1 cup of this item. And the nutrients are all very similar. Any guesses on what these items might be?
Cookie.
Someone said cookie. Any other guesses?
Flavored yogurt.
Flavored yogurt. Any other guesses? It's white milk versus chocolate milk. So you can see, you know, white milk, they both started pretty similar, but basically it's the added sugars. They added chocolate, sugar, all that stuff in there, and that's what changed the nutritional profile of it. So, you know, white milk would be the better choice. But if you want to have a little chocolate milk, you know, that's up to you. The thing is that these labels inform you of these things. So you can make an informed choice of whether you want to have a glass of chocolate milk or if you'd like to stick to the white milk.
If you look at the sodium and potassium combined, they're much higher on the one on B.
Yeah, well, I think they must.
They both act about, sodium and potassium act about the same.
Yeah, for certain things, yep. And sodium, I think they probably add it when they add the chocolate in there because it definitely increases. Sodium is flavor, so it probably just enhances the flavor of the chocolate is my guess on that. All right, so the next one, again, 2 similar products, A and B. This one you'll see is that these labels are a little bit different because they have 2 columns. So the first column is per serving, and the second column is per container. So you'll see these on some products as well, which can be helpful, but it's also kind of overload of information sometimes. But it takes the guesswork out of doing that multiplying up for you. If you know you're going to have the entire container, they've already given you that information, so you don't have to do that multiplying. Just shout it out if you have any ideas of what it is or which one you would choose.
Well, we know it's an animal product because of the cholesterol.
There is cholesterol in it. What else? What else are you looking at on that label to make
Sodium.
sodium? That's right. So B has more sodium than A, especially the whole container of B has 1,190 milligrams of sodium.
So the soup,
So we have one guess for soup. Anyone have other ideas of what it might be? Or which one you would choose?
Canned fruit,
Well, it is canned soup.
soup.
Yep. So one is the chunky, one is the regular classic chicken noodle soup. And you know, B had more sodium. It'd be kind of, again, up to you which one you would like. Either of them are, you know, okay, but that's what it is. So it's just interesting to compare those labels back and forth and see the difference, and what they are. But
I
yes.
think the chunky has more sodium than the regular.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And the last one, I do apologize for the yellowness of it. That is kind of hard to read. But another two items, similar items. And this, this one just has the classic one column. This one has two columns. Serving sizes are both half a cup. What do you think they might be? Which one might you choose? Ice cream. Did I hear someone say ice cream? Any other guesses? Yogurt.
A fruit cup or something like that.
Any other guesses?
A fruit cup
Fruit
or
cup.
something.
Okay. Anyone else? Fruit. Canned fruit. Yeah, so the first one is in heavy syrup. So if we look back, A, the big difference here again is the added sugars. A has 14 grams of added sugars and B has 0. So that's the big difference, and the reason that is because A is canned fruit in heavy syrup, and B is no added sugar canned fruit. It does have some of the non-nutritive sweetener in there. I'm not quite sure which one. Oops. Oh gosh, I'm gonna jump over here. It says artificially sweetened on the no added sugar one. So they put some sort of, Equal or Splenda or something in there to sweeten it up instead of doing the added sugar. So
And they don't have to tell you what they put in there.
they do in the ingredient statement, which we didn't have there. If we put the ingredients on there, you'd know what it is. But yeah, they would tell you in the ingredient statement what kind of sugar or non-nutritive sweetener was in there. And they do put it on the front too. It says artificially sweetened, but it doesn't say which kind. Did you find any of those surprising? Every time I've done this talk, people always guess yogurt for almost every one of them. So it wasn't surprising when you guys guessed yogurt on a couple of them. Maybe next time I'll need to put yogurt on there, because everybody's always guessing yogurt. But I think what makes people do that is because yogurt does have a lot of added sugar in it. So you see the ones that have the added sugar, yogurt is a good one. If you're shopping in the supermarket, look at the added sugar on the yogurt if you're trying to pick yogurt and see how much added sugar is in there, because I think it might surprise you. or it might help you make a decision on which one you want to buy. Any other questions about labels or reading labels or choosing items based on the labels? There's a lot of information on them, but I think they can be really helpful, as we've seen doing these kind of comparisons of labels, to look at them and help you decide which product maybe is the one that you want to pick. And it does depend maybe on your medical conditions. If you have to watch your sodium, you're going to be looking at the sodium line. If you have diabetes, you might be looking at the carbohydrates and the added sugars. It just depends on what is important to you, what you're going to be looking at. So I can't say, either of these products is better. It might depend on what it is that your personal health and nutrition goals are. But the labels can be a good tool in that when you're choosing something. So, one more time, any questions before we get back to these questions to see if you learned anything? So what is the first thing you should look at on a food label? Serving size, sodium, or sugars? Serving size. Because that is what all the information below it relates to. If you don't know what the serving size is, the other information isn't very helpful. Which nutrient is now required to be on the nutrition facts label? Magnesium, added sugar, or cholesterol? Yep, added sugar is the new one. Every older adult needs 2,000 calories per day. True or false? False. So your calorie needs depend on your age, your sex, your activity level, and other medical conditions can factor into that as well. Which of the following is no longer required on the nutrition facts label? Calories from fat, added sugars, or saturated fat?
Calories on fat.
Calories from fat is the one that they took away, that they determined wasn't really needed, wasn't really helpful. It's more about the type of fat and not the amount of fat. So the type of fat, you want to stay away from the unsaturated, or stay away from, the saturated fat and the trans fat. You want more of the unsaturated fat. Thank you all very much for coming today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Very nice, thank you. Did you get the other handout too? Well, thank you, Denise. I appreciate you coming today and updating us on the nutrition, the new nutrition labels.
Yeah.
And you said by 2021 is when they have to be.
Yep. You'll see them in the supermarket now.
Okay.
The large manufacturers, this month is their deadline. So the General Mills, the Kraft, all of those big guys have to have them done, and a lot of them have actually had them done. You've probably seen them in the supermarket for a while. It's the smaller manufacturers that have one more year to get all up to date. But yeah, you'll see them now.
One thing I've learned though is to read the whole list
Mm-hmm.
instead of just looking at how much is in the size of one or two items,
Yeah.
but read the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the whole nutrition facts label will give you a really good picture of how nutritious that food is. Some people might want to zone in on certain things might want to just zone in on sodium if they're very sodium conscious. But looking at the whole label really gives you a good idea of the nutrition in the food item.
Is this one of the new labels?
Yep, that's one of the new ones that was, one that we kind of did with the game.
Okay.
But yeah, all of what's on these handouts are the new nutrition label.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Did you
Sorry,
get this
I'm
one
kinda
too?
late.
Oh, that's okay.
But I got the paper.
Yep, all the information, everything that I put up on here is in your
Yeah.
handouts, so.
Just curious, how long of a period of time has it been in the old label? Do they continue it? Have they?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
That was actually a question I was thinking about earlier, was how long
Yeah.
the old labels were around for, and I I don't actually know the history of this, because I was reading an article about the changes recently, but it didn't say how long the old ones were there for. I don't know. I don't know when that first came to be.
Why do you think people are getting so much more conscientious and observing? the workers
Yeah,
and looking
people
where
are
to
much
focus
more
on?
interested, and the research keeps changing. You know, we keep saying, you know, when it was the fat was terrible for us, now we're saying fat's okay, now watch your sugar, and it all changes because nutrition research is really, really complicated. You can't tell like what one food does to the body because people don't eat just one food. You know, people eat a whole diet, so trying to pinpoint what one food or one nutrient, how it affects the body is difficult, but they've done they've progressed so far in nutrition research, so they keep coming out with new guidelines based on, you know, the more research and better research they're able to do.
Did they change the way the contents are labeled? You know, how they.
The ingredients?
The ingredients, you know, how they used to have the highest amount of.
Yeah, I believe that's still the same, is that in the ingredient statement, it starts off with the item of that's most in the product, and then goes down to the least. That's, I believe, how it's still, yeah.
And it still is confusing with all the.
Yeah, I don't think they've done much to that section yet, that I know of. But yeah, the nutrition facts part was the big change.
What about that BHA and something that's in the can, they say BHP free?
Yeah, BPA.
BPA, maybe that's it, BPA.
Yeah, they do label that on a lot of the cans.
Right.
Most, yeah, I think there's a lot of them are moving toward no BPA in the cans.
So what is that, a chemical?
It's a chemical compound in the cans that's been proven to not be good.
Oh, right.
So they're moving away from that.
It's mostly dairy products, isn't it?
No, it's in a lot of the like the actual packaging,
Oh.
the BPA, yeah.
But I was reading the new things that they're replacing it with, they're finding are even more dangerous than.
Well, okay, that's a risk when they do these things, is that they find one thing that has been shown to be not healthy, so then they create these new chemical compounds that they put in the can, and then they're gonna figure out later on, you know, maybe that wasn't so good. It's kind of how it's always happened, right? They do their best.
Kind of like aspirin.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many years did everybody take aspirin?
And then they found out
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't do that anymore.
Right.
You can't know until
The research has
yeah.
been over years.
Yeah.
Or was there anything that surprised you last year nutritionally, which changed?
Not really. I'm glad that they put the added sugars on there. I feel like that really helps in that carbohydrate section to know, you know, if it's added sugar, if it has a lot of extra sugar in it or not. Because, you know, sugar has no nutritive value to it. You're not getting vitamins and minerals and anything else from it. It's just calories. It's just empty calories. So it's good to know that when you're looking at a label, so you can choose whether you want those extra calories or not. That was the part that I appreciate the most on it. And you know, how the serving size is bigger, because that is really the most important part. If you don't know what the serving size is, then, you know, the rest of it makes no sense, doesn't really mean anything, so.
And with all these new plant-based proteins, do they also have to list, are they required to do the nutritional facts and also
The ingredients.
the ingredients?
Yep, every packaged food products have to meet those requirements of the nutrition facts label and the ingredients. I think you'll find if you looked at a lot of these plant-based protein things, like the, you know, plant-based burgers and all these things, if you look at the ingredient list, it will probably be quite long with a lot of words that we don't understand in them. So I mean, that's one thing. it's a popular food right now, but I'm gonna be curious to see what happens down the road, because I think they are doing a lot of processing of that to create it. You know, they're putting a lot of things in, there's a lot of processing. So it'll be interesting to see the life of those plant-based proteins, what happens to them as we go on. You know, just food trends change very
I
quickly.
think there was an article in today's paper, I think,
Oh, really?
on what's in some of those burgers that are plant-based.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of us that's really surprising.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, it's like pea flour,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's a common protein that they put in a lot of these non-meat products
they
to
don't
increase
put
the
much
protein.
because it supposedly tastes like urine.
Oh, dear. Oh. Thank you, Jerry.
Now you know. Now you know. But yeah, it's but they have to do a lot to it to make something that's not meat taste like meat. So
Well, what about all the foods that are coming in, you know, like in the ethnic markets and everything? Do those have to also,
anything sold in the U.S. Do have to meet the FDA guidelines for the
so
labels.
all the ethnic packaging also has to be changed?
Mhm. Yep, they will have to meet those requirements. Yep.
I saw at Dunkin' Donuts, they have a sausage patty
Oh,
sandwich,
yes,
but it is plant-based,
yes.
Mhm.
470 calories.
Yes.
That's kind
Wow.
of much.
That is kind of for just the patty or the whole sandwich.
Well, the sandwich too.
Yeah, so the whole
The
sandwich.
croissant or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it's.
I mean, I guess you think
It's-
plant-based, it wouldn't be that.
But that's the marketing piece of it all. Now, you know, plant-based is the new buzzword, so they slap that on everything and people think it's healthier. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's healthier. It could have, you know, when they need to add flavor, they add sodium. So you gotta watch the salt content of those things because, you know, salt is flavor, so they add more of that to cover it up. And, you know, what they do to these things, you really just need to be nutrition savvy and read the labels and see what it is. Because, yeah,
But most of us aren't.
that's why you're here today.
Yes, yes.
Now you've learned a little more about the nutrition labels and how to read them, so you can be more of a nutrition savvy consumer. Because you know it's all about marketing with the food companies. They slap something on the front, you know, whatever the newest buzzword is. You know, they put it on the front so that it makes people want to buy it and think it's healthier. Doesn't always mean that it's healthier though. If you actually compare the nutrients of, you know, whatever product it is, you might see a difference, even though it has like all these healthy claims on the front.
And yet things like our, if you go to the store to buy a hamburger, now I was told, I don't know if this is true or not, like the hamburger can come from 20 different places and they put them all together and then they can add all kinds of filler to them as well.
That is
Is that
probably true.
Oh, okay.
I don't know specifically about how they make the hamburger, but it doesn't
They can add
sound.
sawdust and everything because
Oh.
it's a natural product and, I mean, can they,
I,
Do
there
they
are
have
there
any-
are regulations, especially meat packing and stuff that's very much regulated by the USDA. So there's regulations that all these manufacturers have to follow. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but they are highly regulated and visited by inspectors and all of those things. The food is tested, so I don't know the exact regulations, but you can probably find them online. Find anything online these days. But yeah, a lot, you know, there's issues with our food supply, but it is regulated in a lot of ways.
but they don't have to label it in the markets these days.
Yeah, there's different regulations for fresh product. These food labels are all for packaged foods. So things like fresh meats and produce and things like that don't have these same nutrition facts labels, which it would be nice sometimes if you could see the nutrition facts labels for some of the fresh foods you're buying. But yeah, they have different regulations that they have to follow for that. These nutrition facts labels are only on packaged foods.
Well done.
Mm-hmm.